Welcome to Well Since You Asked Me, the podcast where curiosity sparks conversation. Today I'm joined by two incredible women whose work and lived experience are reshaping how we talk about pregnancy, postpartum care, and domestic violence in our communities. Amber is a program coordinator for a domestic violence support program and a survivor of intimate partner violence. After a 10-year healing journey, Amber stepped into birth work with one goal in mind: to support the younger version of herself. Her passion is grounded in showing up for teen moms, Black pregnant women, and survivors, especially those navigating abuse during pregnancy and postpartum, because she remembers what it felt like to be seen and yet completely overlooked. Joining her is Zakia, a devoted doula with specialized training and outreach for domestic violence survivors through Black Mothers in Power. Her commitment to supporting women and families is deeply rooted in her own lived experience. Having faced the realities of domestic violence and the shortcomings of existing support systems, Zakia has become a powerful advocate for improving conditions in domestic violence safe houses across the Delaware tri-state area. She brings a trauma-informed, CPR-certified lens to her work, combining compassionate care with practical tools for long-term stability. From educating clients about life insurance to helping them navigate complex systems, Zakia is focused on ensuring that survivors are not just safe, but truly supported. These two women are not just telling their stories, they're changing the narrative. So grab your favorite drink, get comfortable, and let's get into it. All right, well, Amber and Zakia, thank you both for agreeing to meet with me today. I'm honored to have you both on the show. I want to start off with just you sharing your journey and what brought you into this space. And hopefully we can all learn something and understand how we can support this effort and this initiative that you've embarked on. Amber, would you like to start? Or Zakia?
Sure. I can start. My name is Amber Twine. I am a community doula, a program coordinator, and an intimate partner violence survivor myself. I got involved with birth work and doula work after a 10-year healing journey after my own experience. And I knew that I just wanted to support, the younger version of me. So that looked like teen moms, Black pregnant women, and people that have experienced domestic violence, and especially during pregnancy and that postpartum period, and what that looks like, because I had experienced so many professionals that I know could see I was experiencing abuse at home that didn't intervene at any step of the way.
Yeah, how about yourself? What brought you into this space?
Yes, I also experienced domestic violence and during my pregnancy and outside of my pregnancy. And like Amber said, I couldn't quite understand how it wasn't noticed. I mean, it was clear as day, and not one doctor, and as many doctor's appointments as you go to, one would assume that at some point in time, you're going to recognize that I'm experiencing domestic violence. And not one doctor, even in the hospital, I was experiencing domestic violence. No one knew. No one checked. No one cared to see. And for me, that led me down this path. And I want to be able to advocate for our women. I've also experienced living in domestic violence safe havens, which some are not up to par, and I wanted to make sure that I could advocate for those women, because at the time that the women are there, they have no voice, they have no one to say, hey, like, our standards, that the living standards that we're living in are not up to par, or things of that nature. So that's what led me to get into this lane.
Yeah, so Zakia, you said two things that stood out to me. You said that the healthcare providers didn't know, and then you said they didn't care. And those are two very distinct things. And so I want to know if either one of you have any insight or anything that you'd like to share about how cultural or societal expectations impact Black women's ability to seek help. because when you're in those spaces, and I didn't expect experience domestic violence with an intimate partner, but I have two boys, and sometimes, sharing that information and building trust with the healthcare provider is a challenge. So, are there societal or cultural norms that you think impact a woman or anyone's ability to seek help?
I think there are two key systems that we experience, in space. So one is healthcare, and then one
Mhm.
is like the justice system, right? So as far as being a Black woman and Black in general, there is this distrust. There's this distrust with everything that involved with the legal system, especially around children, especially around Black men, and how we kind of operate with that piece. And when we talk about the healthcare system, sometimes those go hand in hand. Sometimes there's fear of being called, child protective services being called by telling your doctor certain things and how that can impact, you know, whether you even leave the hospital with your children. So I think there's levels. But I do think that we want to have a trust with our healthcare, but with Black maternal health disparities, with the connection between healthcare and the judicial system, um, there's no safety. So I think we have to tread that very lightly, and we do, subconsciously or consciously.
Yeah,
Okay.
talk about that. One of the things that stands out in this space that you're both in is providing support to women that are experiencing birth, but they want to go outside of the hospital, traditional hospital, so the doula. And it's interesting when you talked about building trust. And I think that I haven't experienced that, so I want to hear more about how you build trust with your the person that you're caring for, and then what signs do you look for as a doula or someone in that space so that you can help support someone that may be going through that trauma?
Yeah, so Zakia, and feel free to interrupt me too. When it comes to doulas, we can show up in any of the spaces, any of the
Yeah.
birthing locations, not just out of hospital. So
Okay.
there's plenty of doulas that support C-section, hospital births, and all of those things.
Hmm.
When it comes to the building, I think because we generally meet our clients in their homes, in their environments, around their families, we're not meeting them in an office during hours with like a clipboard in front of us, right? And they also choose us. We're not like assigned to them. We're not given to them and they just go with, they actually go through the process of interviewing us, seeing if we are a good fit for their family. And I think that's a huge difference than what we're used to in healthcare. And then Zakia, you can speak to like, what things we look for and things.
Yeah, I would agree with everything you said. So when we support, there's not questions that we ask like, hey, are you being abused at home? Because no one's gonna really say, yeah, like I'm going through domestic violence. They're not gonna really say, hey, yeah, that's what I'm experiencing. We look for things like they're not making eye contact with us. He won't allow us to talk to you without over speaking. He won't allow us to talk to you by yourself. He doesn't want to go out the room. Sometimes you're not speaking at all. Sometimes there's bruises, there's missing hair, there's busted lips, there's actual proof of it on people's bodies, but you also have to pay attention to the body language. The body language tells a whole lot when someone is going through domestic violence that it's really hard for them to give you eye contact. That's not something that a domestic violence, someone who's experienced it currently, that's one of the things that there's no eye contact because their self-esteem is probably so low that they're fearful of giving eye contact, or maybe they gave eye contact before and they had to go through something because of that when they got home. So we just like to look for those signs of, especially those signs of him not wanting to leave the room, like just being adamant on, I'm not leaving and I don't know why I need to leave.
Yaya DaCosta has been in the news recently about her work as a doula, and there have been a lot of conversations about it. I want to know from your experience, are you finding a lot more Black women are seeking the support of like your services, or is it about the same? What are your thoughts on that?
I think, well, historically, doulas, we weren't just called doulas. We were part of a village, a community, so it was a different thing. And then for a while, there was kind of like this lull in, this title and licensure and all these type of things. Doulas are still unregulated. And now with the Black maternal health being put in the forefront, even on the federal level, we're seeing more people understand and hear the term doula and then associating that with this type of support. And then celebrity wise, we have like Tatiana Ali talking about her doula, Yaya, who we love, Erica Badu. So we're seeing more mainstream people. But I think at the core of it in the community, um, in my opinion, I think it's about the same. I think Black women have always wanted to have support. We've always felt that, the hospital systems as they are not made for us. And we've been looking for what support we need and just didn't have necessarily the words to attach to it. So I think that might be the difference.
The work that you do. One of the things I really liked about it is the use of the word unapologetic about being deliberate and the women and the people that you're supporting. And I hear from the conversation why that's so important from your experience, from what's going on in the with Black women in the maternal health. Are there any other reasons why you focus, on that group, and what does that work look like outside of being a doula? What other services are you providing?
Yeah. So, and again, Zakia, you can interrupt me. Uh, So I think a big thing is not just the support when it comes to birth, labor,
Mhm,
and delivery, but that postpartum healing, which is something that is not even really addressed at all, especially with our
mhm.
maternity leave policies. The US is just not supportive of appropriate postpartum care. And then also we do a lot of education. So childbirth education, sometimes just knowing our rights, being able to advocate for ourselves, understanding what is normal, what is not. Um, that can, you know, replace the need to have such support because we know for ourselves and feeling empowered enough to speak up and what is a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah. Zakia, did you want to add something to that?
No, she
You
kind of
did.
said it all.
She did. You touched on a couple of things, Zakia, that I wanted to go back to. You were talking about recognizing some of the signs of potential trauma or abuse, the eye contact, the partner not wanting to leave the room. When we were talking, we talked a little bit about Black women in particular, and historically our love for Black men. We love them, whether they're not treating us as well as they should. They're treating us actually horrible. We will still support them. And I heard something from Amber that you said, like, people are fearful that if you do report it, you are now putting your family at jeopardy. So CPS could be called. That Black man that we want to love, that they don't have the same grace as their counterparts, right? So if they do something and we report it, they don't get to bounce back and have that grace. And so when you think about all of these structures that could potentially impede someone for asking for help, how do you get that help to them? If you're seeing those signs, what are some of the things that you can do? And I'm going to say that,
So,
yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
oh, go. No, I don't want to, because I
Oh,
want
I
to
was
make
just
sure I
going to
answer
say, no, no,
everything.
no, it's okay because I'm asking because you are in a specialized position, but as friends, as family, there are things that we could take away from this, and also, support people that are in that position and they just don't feel comfortable saying it for whatever reason.
To be honest, they're probably never going to be comfortable saying.
Mhm.
Not saying that you're going to have to just be like all on top of them, but you kind of got to get someone so comfortable with you that they don't mind sharing. So us as doulas, we make it our business to make our clients as comfortable as possible with us. Like Amber said, we're not we're not assigned to them; they choose us. So we have our sit down. We make sure that we're good for them and that they're good for us. Because sometimes clients are not good for certain doulas, and certain doulas are not good for certain clients. So we make sure before, anything, we're both a perfect fit for one another. Um, and then we're with you for your whole pregnancy. So we get to go to your doctor's appointments with you. We get to talk to you outside of office hours. We get to come to your home and see how things are at home. Sometimes we go out to eat and just sit and have like lunch dates and talk about things. Or after your doctor's appointment, we might go out to lunch and just sit and just chat. We have a lot of time with these clients, so there's by the time that conversation needs to have happen, it really doesn't need to happen because we kind of already know because we've taken that time to like deep dive into them, and we've taken that time to become their family and for them to become our family. So we kind of already have a hint of what's going on. It's our job to provide resources. So I wouldn't say like, hey, I see that you have this bruise on your arm or someone hitting you at home. I wouldn't even say like, are you comfortable at home? Like, even though we have to ask those questions, if I seen a bruise, I wouldn't say like, hey, are you comfortable at home? I would just start giving resources. That way that my client knows that I know what's going on. And then once my client is comfortable enough to have that conversation, then we make a plan. If you're ready to go, I'm right here with you. I'm going to help you get out of here. I'm going to come up with a plan for you, where you're going to go, how you're going to get there. If you have the kids, how we're going to get the kids. If they have clothes, how are we going to get those things? We give resources first. That way that your client has a hint of like, I know you know what I'm going through because you're telling me all these programs and you're giving me all these things about domestic violence. They'll eventually open up and talk about it.
And even like when it ties into family and friends, sometimes family and friends are so closely attached that their approach is too aggressive.
Mhm.
So it's not about really providing resources. It's more like, why are you doing this? Like you know better. But a key part of DV is also that isolation. So being isolated from your support system and community, you know. So
Yes.
sometimes friends don't even have that access, and doulas may have more access during that time frame.
Yeah.
You both, and I love this part. What I took away from that is that you're intentional about providing that space and that support for each and every one of your clients. And so they're really not clients. They do become part of your system, and you're not going to be able to get that at a healthcare provider. I mean, half the time they're not even there for 20, 30 minutes and you're sitting in a room. So, right, that's a big plus for that. One of the other things that we talked about that I want to go back to is we were talking about just some of the systems that are set up that are not designed for Black women to be safe within like traditional hospitals. Um, do you have any thoughts on how the systemic racism shows up in maternal health care, and which roles do institutions like hospitals and government agencies play in either upholding or dismantling these disparities? So you think about that was a lot of words. So when you think about the hospital and going in as a Black woman, there are some things that I think some conscious or unconscious biases that are assigned to us. Like one of the things that I always heard is that you can sustain a lot of pain. Actually, I can't. So load me up. So it's things like that. What are you seeing, and or what words can maybe people that are doing the traditional way advocate for themselves?
So that's a lot,
I
and
knew it was a lot.
we see it in a variety. We see it in a variety of ways, right? So primarily by the healthcare staff,
Mhm.
dismissing concerns, not documenting charts appropriately, using fear mongering and fear tactics to make Black women make a decision that may not be best for their bodies, putting distrust of women, of their own bodies in them during the, you know, visit.
Yeah.
Even when you think about the space, so you'll walk in and see a poster that says Black women are 2 to 3 times more likely to die of, like, those kinds of things impact your mentality,
Oh, yes.
right? And that's just like off the top of my head.
No, that's
Like
really interesting. I didn't
it's
even
layered.
consider that.
And when Zakia
Yes.
was saying, when we constantly hear it or we talk about like women are highest risk for all of these things, preeclampsia, death, mortality, morbidity, when we are hearing that,
Hmm.
but not realize it's not because we're Black, it's because of white supremacy and racism. That is the difference. It's not just inherently because we are Black with African American descent or what have you. That's not where the statistics are coming from. And so I think that's part of the education conversation. Um, what in your diet is contributing to your hypertension if you have it? Why are they labeling you high risk? Is it because you actually have high blood pressure, or is it because your body shape? Do you know what I mean? So it's layered.
It is very layered, and that's such a good point for you to bring up because a lot of times we'll look at the symptom and not the root cause. And when you were saying that, I was thinking about people that live in, they have food insecurities, they have things that contribute to these things, but no one backs that up. No one has that conversation. So I was always admiring and loving the work that you're doing, but this conversation is so important that we start thinking about. The beginning, right? So the real beginning and not where people want us to have that conversation and changing the narrative for us. That's very insightful. Thank you for sharing that. Very, very good. You guys, you have some collaboration with some other groups. Like I believe you work with the youth groups like Black girls and other maybe marginalized groups. Can you talk to me a little bit about what that work looks like?
Yeah. So Zakia can speak to what we do with the college students and yeah.
So, with the DSU, there's a group. We all sat down, had a podcast. It was so cute how we met. There was a podcast that Amber and I sat on, and then there were two young ladies from UD that came and also sat on the podcast and shared their experience and the things that they've gone through on campus. Um, then we had a conversation kind of like after that, and they invited us out again, and they have their own little podcast, their own group at DSU, and we're pretty hands-on with those girls there. So whatever they need, we try to show up and support them as best as we can. It was really cool meeting them. So we have lots of work to do still. They just did a podcast, and had a panel discussion. Amber was on the panel. It was really, really nice. It was really educational. And I enjoyed working with those girls.
Also did a teen dating violence workshop for a local high school. We work with the domestic violence, Delaware Domestic Violence Coalition, doing their annual retreat and talking about the connection between doulas and DV advocacy, and just trying to fill in those gaps in these spaces where people aren't thinking that doulas can help, but we're very much, part of the the solution, you know.
So you and I, well, all of us, we talked initially when we were talking about the episode and we were talking about the intersection of domestic violence and doulas and how you can bridge some of that. And that through this conversation, yes, I can see that I'm building that trust, building that community. One of the reasons why, and I shared this with you, one of the reasons why I was keen on doing this particular episode was because I watched and I read the book. It ends with us. And I was looking at the nuances of what domestic violence looked like, but it was through the lens of our white counterparts. And I said it has to be even more nuanced for Black women. unfortunately, I had experienced some of this in my college days. And, one of the things, and Zakia, this kind of harkens back to what you were saying, is that I didn't want to say anything. I'm a professional woman, educated, and I felt embarrassed that it was happening. And that even though, I was able to extract myself from it, but I allowed myself to get into it in the first place. And so it is difficult to be able to share that when you have gone through that trauma, when people have this idea of who you're supposed to be or who they think you are, and you're living in trauma. And so one of the things that you just said that I love is that providing that mentorship, that is so important. So yes, it's very important. Yeah.
Absolutely.
That mentorship is important, especially like with the youth, the the earlier on that we can educate about domestic violence, I believe that we can stop some of it. We can't prevent it all, but we can prevent some of it from happening.
So you're based out of Delaware, and I wonder if there are opportunities, and what are some of the things that people that are listening can do to support? I do know that you have a donation site, and so I'm going to put that in the show notes when we get done. If anyone would like to donate to the wonderful work that these ladies are and their counterparts are doing, definitely that. But are there other things that you would recommend that we think about when we're trying to build our community? We're building this community of wonderful Black men and boys, all right, and girls.
I think Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, having the conversation not just with young girls and women, but also men and young boys
Yes.
before it's an issue. Me and Zakia are very passionate about the prevention piece. So of course we
Yes.
support the survivor, but preventing, it's preventable, right? It's like I think it was some crazy statistic, like over 97% of these cases can be preventable. So what can we do with the early on intervention? What are the signs that we can see in I think the data shows that many teen dating violence instances start as young as 12 years old. So not steering away from like the middle school age students and addressing those behaviors in a way that they can understand. And also just about the teens, that's the time frame where we see it's equally abusive from girls and boys. And it's not until the adult age that we start to see the disparities of more males are abusive. So getting very early on, speaking to the teens about how to healthily communicate and interact with each other and what love actually looks like and what healthy relationships look like.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. And
That's
also, I want to add a lot of the guys, a lot of men don't talk about domestic violence because they're experiencing it. And if it's embarrassing for us as females to say, hey, like, yeah, I'm going through this, we can only imagine how it is for our men that are experiencing this to say, hey, like, this is something that I'm experiencing and I need to have a conversation about it. So we also like to talk to the boys now so that they don't feel like they have to be embarrassed by anything, just as much as we talk to us about it.
Yeah, one of the things
Yes.
that I read about, and I'm sorry, I'm trying to find it, but you used a term. You didn't say like women, or you used a term about birth parents. I can't find the term, but I thought it
I think,
was insightful.
yeah, birthing people, possibly birthing person, which is just the inclusive term of people that may not identify as female that
Yes.
give birth.
Yes. And so you do a really good job of working with the intersection of being Black or maybe being part of the LGBTQ plus community. And I'm sure that that is going to require you to be even more nuanced and specialized in your engagement. And so you do a lot of work for a lot of different people. Again, I want to make sure that anyone listening that wants to support you has an avenue to do that. When we think about backing up the communication and modeling love for our children and for the people that we love. We don't always see that, unfortunately, in the media. we don't see a lot of that, and which is terrible, but maybe I'll have an episode on that because we see a lot of it in other communities, but we see a lot of media that's unfortunately very violent and traumatizing. Are there any recommendations, like books or anything that you would recommend for anyone that wants to maybe develop that language or the communication style to have those conversations with other groups or younger groups?
That's a great question too. My go-to reference is actually when survivors give birth, and it's pretty much for midwives and birth workers, but it has a lot of great information about triggers and what those triggers and traumas look like. So I think it's a great read just all around as far as that's concerned for anyone that um works with a population in a community of any sort,
Mhm.
because also 1 in 4 women will experience DV in their lifetime. So we
Yeah.
can't treat it like it's like this specialized group of people when it's actually a large a large percentage, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, and then there's a website called loveisrespect.org. And that's really geared towards teens, but it just has a lot of great information in an easy, digestible way.
Okay, that's great. Thank you for sharing that. It's very awesome. Before we wrap up, because for some reason we're already at 30 minutes, I don't know how that happened. But I kind of knew it when I had the initial conversation with you two. I was like, this might be a long one. There's a lot of information. Is there anything that you would want us to reflect on or to continue to discuss after listening to this particular episode from either one of you, or both, hopefully?
Um, Honestly, I would like to just say, like, for the family members that are there that want to support a family member or a loved one that is experiencing domestic violence, I would just say, just be patient with them.
Mm.
Be as gentle with them as you can, because it's a lot. It's heavy. It's layered. And what I like to say, domestic violence is, if you think of a laundry basket full of wet clothes, you're at the bottom of those that pile of wet clothes. You're in that laundry basket, and a pile of wet clothes is on top of you. So it's literally layered. So you just have to be as patient with
Mm.
them as possible. They may go back. They
Yes.
may they may feel like they need to go back. They may call you at 3 a.m. in the morning for a whole week straight because they just need to talk and they need to get it out. So if you're supporting a loved one that is experiencing domestic violence, that is currently a domestic violence, stuck in domestic violence, just be patient with them. Find some resources and try to give them do as best as you can. Just be there for them, because when they're ready to go, they're gonna get up and go.
That is awesome. That's great advice. Amber?
I would just say that there's tons of resources for us as people that are able to be part of a community that sees and can see. So it doesn't hurt to just make yourself more knowledgeable and just take the time to at least recognize some signs
Hmm.
and to look for no matter what industry you're in, because there's so many different ways someone can be triggered.
Yes.
Also, Black Mothers in Power is the nonprofit that we partner with. Concrete Rose Holistic is the company that we work under.
Hmm.
And we're starting doulas for dv.org, which will be a collective of any doulas that want to specialize in this way, because it can be traumatic, even as a birth worker, to support this. But bringing that awareness is important. And
That's,
then finally,
yes.
finally, I would just say that the science, it doesn't usually does not start with physical harm. It starts with emotional manipulation. So not trying to control another person is important. You own no one but yourself. And seeing anybody trying to control another person is an early sign. So just keep a lookout for
I
that.
love that. That is amazing. Thank you so much for being with me. I'm going to end it with my well, since you asked me, and I'm actually going to change it up. I talked to you about something, but I'm going to ask you because what we're talking about, I want to know if you've been following the news with the Shannon Sharp thing. And so we're talking
Okay.
about domestic violence. And I just want to, since you asked, what do you guys think about that?
Well, I think that, I think Shannon gets a lot of heat from a lot of different ways. And I
Mm,
think that it's easy for us to jump and assume, especially media wise,
mm.
But I think that everyone deserves a chance to speak their truth, believe survivors first, but also follow up with facts. And,
Mm,
and also, people deserve a right for a chance at accountability and redemption, in my opinion.
that's very good. Thank you. Zakia, did you have any thoughts on that?
Um, I don't really have much thoughts on that. I try to stay away from that kind of stuff on social
Yeah.
media just because I don't know. I don't know. We only get like bits and pieces and
Yes.
sprinkles of it. And sometimes I can find myself being one-sided and being wrong. So I try my best to say, like, he's gonna have a time where everything's gonna come out, and if he needs to redeem himself, or he needs to be apologetic, and he needs to find some therapy or whatever may have you for, if these things are all true, if that's what I would hope for him, that he would go and get some therapy, because the things that I'm reading, I'm not too happy with. And I also hope that she goes and gets some therapy as well, because survivors need it, and the person that is inflicting the abuse also need it, or it's going to just continue to be a cycle. That behavior is going to continue if he doesn't get it addressed.
Well, thank you for that. I love that. I love what both of you said, Amber. I think that, right. Believe the survivor first and then get the facts. I think that's the way that we should all comport ourselves and to address situations like that. And Zakia, like you said, we don't know. We get someone's narrative. And so get the facts, verify the facts. And everybody, I am a big advocate. I always say this for therapy. Get therapy. It's good for you.
Right.
Well, ladies, we are almost out of time, and I'm going to go ahead and end it at this point. I hope that maybe we'll have an opportunity to revisit some other things that you're doing. You're doing great work. I appreciate you. I admire you, and I wish you nothing but just love, joy, and just thank you so much for putting your light out into the world and helping other people.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. That's a wrap for this episode of Well, Since You Asked Me. I hope this conversation left you with something to think about, something to question, or maybe even something to share. If you or someone you know is experiencing domestic violence, please know that you're not alone and help is available. You may contact the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-7233 or visit thehotline.org for 24/7 confidential support. For culturally competent care specifically focused on Black and Brown communities, check out organizations like Sister Apia Community Mental Wellness at sisterapia.com, Black Women's Health Imperative at bwhi.org, or the Loveland Foundation at thelovelandfoundation.org. To support the critical work being done for pregnant Black women experiencing domestic violence, consider donating to organizations like Black Mothers Empower at blackmothersempower.org and Black Mamas Matter Alliance at blackmamasmatter.org. You may also contribute to local shelters and community-based doula programs that center around Black maternal health. I would like to thank our executive producer, John Dunson, audio and video technician, Ryan Sexton, and graphic designer, Ellen Jacobs. If you enjoyed today's discussion, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and spread the word. You may also follow us on Instagram at WSYAM Podcast. Until next time, stay curious, stay open, and keep asking the questions that matter. Bye.